Welcome to the VEROSCOPE channel, where today we're looking at the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, but in particular the witness Allie McCabe, who is on the witness stand being cross-examined today by Alan Jackson. And the judge in the case is the beautiful Beverly Canone, who you can see there on the left. If you're new to the trial itself, Allie McCabe, who you can see here, is the daughter of Jen McCabe. This is Jen. Jen is another witness in the trial of Karen Read and was in the house, was at the party where the killing of John O'Keefe occurred. John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer, and he was found on the front lawn of this guy, Colin Albert, a fellow Boston police officer, and John O'Keefe was found killed. But this woman here, where is she again? Jen McCabe, the star of the case almost. She Googled at 2:30 something in the morning, "Hoss long to die in the cold." And there are some who believe that John wasn't showing any signs of life and could indeed have been already killed by the time that she Googled that. But imagine the callousness of, instead of calling emergency services and giving John O'Keefe every shot at life, instead you go about planning and plotting Hoss long to die in the cold. And who can we blame it on rather than take responsibility ourselves? And that's the argument of the defense. So without further ado, let's listen to the examination of Allie McCabe and then the cross-examination of Allie McCabe. It should be about an hour or so, an hour and 10 minutes, it says. Thank you, by the way, to the trial channel. As always, the trial channel, an excellent channel to subscribe to if you haven't already, as they do a lot of the editing of the boring parts of trials, a lot of the sidebars and waiting and hanging around. They remove it all for us. So do go and subscribe to them. That'd be very much appreciated. And say hello from VEROSCOPE if you get the chance in the comments. And if you're in the subscribing mood, do subscribe to the VEROSCOPE channel as well, because every day we're going to be running through more forensic linguistics and statement analysis. So by the end of watching a dozen or so Veroscopes, your own ability to be able to tell if you're being deceived or if someone is trying to lie to you in any shape or form, your ability to detect deception will be far higher than it was, and probably as high as some of the very best people in the world, especially if you spend some time studying it. Okay, let's carry on without further ado.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name, teacher?
Allie McCabe, MCCABE.
And where do you live, ma'am?
And just before we carry on, I think it's important to note, look how she is with Mr. Lally, and then compare how she is with the defense. Look at her body language, the color of her face, the way that blood under stress and pressure makes her go extremely red. Notice the way that she handles her head position and her body language in total. And then, from a linguistic point of view, look for the hedging and the constant minimization, and spot the differences between the examination, which is happening now with Mr. Lally, versus the cross-examination. So you should notice that there is more of a natural baseline with the prosecution, less hedging, and less visual indications of extreme stress and embarrassment. But let's also bear in mind that this is an innocent young lady. She's not responsible for the murder or the killing of John O'Keefe. And it's not her fault that her parents and her other relations, the adults who caused this situation, are asking her to join in with the deception. So bear in mind that there is an element of pressure, coercion, to some degree intimidation, that this witness is under from her own family and those who are attempting to frame Karen Read, in my opinion.
10.
And how long have you lived in Canton?
Basically my whole life except first few months I lived in Stoughton.
And do you work? Do you go to school?
I'm a student.
In college, is that correct?
Yes.
And what year are you in college?
I just finished my sophomore year.
And when living in Canton, who, if anyone, do you live in Canton?
My 2 parents and my 3 sisters.
So you're one of 4 girls, is that correct?
Correct.
And are you the oldest?
Yes.
And your parents, what are their names?
So in statement analysis, we might notice things like she said my 2 parents, as opposed to my parents. My 2 parents. Can you see there's a difference? And then we would ask ourselves, why? And so the intelligence which we can gather by slowing down and actually analyzing what she says through the skill of active listening is what we're learning. Okay, let's carry on. See what else you can pick up. Tiny little findings, they all add up, and in would go the flag, the deception flags.
Matt and Jen.
If I could turn your attention to January 28th into January 29th, 2022. Do you recall those days?
Yes.
And do you recall what days of the week those were?
Friday and Saturday, I believe.
And so on that Friday evening, starting with there, well, let me ask you this first. At that time, you were a high school student, is that correct?
Correct.
And where did you go to high school?
Canton High School.
All 4 years?
Yes.
And did you play any sports when you were at Canton High School?
Yes.
And what sports did you play?
Soccer, hockey, and lacrosse.
And so January, that would have been which sports season?
Hockey season.
Now, with respect to the hockey, as far as that evening of the 28th,
So here you'll see that she's able to answer, as a baseline, straightforward questions with straightforward answers with minimal hedging and minimal deception markers. Can you see that?
how did your evening start out, or what, if anything, were you doing first that evening?
It started with a team dinner at my house. The hockey team came over. We had dinner. Then I went to my sister's basketball game at the Canton High School. Then I was hanging out with 2 of my friends. We were driving around. Then the night ended with me driving Colin Albert home.
Okay. So here we see the sentence, the night ended with me driving Colin Albert home. So priority, we note it's a priority of hers to bring Colin into the statement for the first time fairly early. She hasn't been asked about Colin, I don't believe, but she brings him into the statement. But more importantly for her, the night ended once she had managed to drop Colin home. In her eyes, the night didn't then end with having to get herself home. Instead, psychologically, it ended with dropping Colin off. Isn't that interesting? How her mind has ended the night with the task accomplished. Get Colin home. It's these tiny little, I won't call them slips of the tongue, but it's these truthful consciousness, and I won't call them mistakes. It's these demonstrations of truthful consciousness which give us vast amounts of intelligence. Does that make sense?
So let me start sort of back at the beginning before we go all the way through. So as far as the team dinner, is that something that was like a weekly thing?
Yeah, it was usually like the night before a game.
And sort of rotated between different players' houses?
Correct.
And so where was it on that particular?
That night it was at my house.
And about what time did the team dinner get done, or what time did that wind down and you went to the basketball game?
I'm not exactly sure. The basketball games typically start around 6:30, so I assume around then.
And
we also note that all of the witnesses in the house, or the house defendants, as I believe Alan Jackson calls them, or because Karen Reid has been found not guilty twice in two different trials, she was found not guilty of the murder of John O'Keefe, then the house suspects, for some of them, becomes relevant. Which do you prefer? Which term do you prefer? House defendants, which only includes the defendants that Karen Reid is taking legal action against in civil suits, civil trials, or house suspects, if they genuinely are a suspect?
Who, if anyone, from your family was involved in the basketball?
My younger sister.
And was she JV, varsity? What was she playing on at that time?
Varsity.
And who, if anyone else from your family, was at the basketball?
My parents. I'm not sure about my sisters.
And did you go with?
But bear in mind, all of the witnesses have been very well coached in timeline avoidance. They will all, to a T, avoid any attempt to pin time down to them, time down to a location, or time down to others' arrivals or departures. They've been very well coached. No one gives any time at all. Everything's hedged. And this is consistent and constant across all of the house suspects and house defendants and house witnesses.
Parents or separately, or how did you get there?
I believe I drove and I arrived later than my parents.
And as far as at that time, did you have your own car?
Yes.
And what kind of car did you have?
A little Ford Fusion, blue.
And when you arrived there, you're a high school senior, correct?
Correct.
Did you sit with your parents during the game?
No.
There's sort of like a student section, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you sat there with your friends?
Yes.
And when the game gets over, where was it that you went?
I believe I was just driving around with two of my friends, and then as we were driving, we came across a dog on the side of the street. We knew a snowstorm was coming, so we picked the dog up and then brought it to the police station, and then drove the dog back to where its owner's house.
And so just...
Okay. So that's a lot of information, a lot of it unnecessary. And she was looking at the jury to demonstrate what a kind and thoughtful young lady she is. I have a friend, strangely enough, by coincidence, who twice has done a similar thing, driving along in Spain, and she sees a dog by itself on the side of the road, and she stops and she says, "Oh my God, we can't leave the little dog all by itself. It must be lost." But of course, in Spain, a lot of the Spaniards, they let the dogs walk themselves. So this particular friend, she would pick up the dog. I would say to her, "It's not lost. It's just walking itself." and she would insist that no, it's lost, and she would have to take it home. And look, there's a telephone number on the collar, and she would take it home and call the telephone number. And twice the owners have said, "Well, we've been looking for the dog for the last few hours." And sure enough, it's just what they do in Spain. Many of the dogs walk themselves. So she is a serial dog kidnapper, but with a good heart. And maybe Allie is the same. She sees a little dog by itself, and she can't help but rescue it. Um, the story is very convoluted. It involves multiple witnesses. It would involve records and telephone calls, and the dog owner getting their dog back. It's unlikely to be fabricated for the simple reason that barefaced lying is avoided by gaslighters and liars, generally speaking, unless they're an absolute psychopath. They avoid barefaced lying because it's the easiest way to get caught, and they avoid that risk at all costs. So there's no need to introduce a timeline fact that can be checked. So I do believe that the dog story is not fabricated. Why is it in? Because there's no hole in the timeline, and it's the truth. Some people say, well, what about Chloe? Did Chloe go with her? And or other people think that Chloe went with others, and the dog story might have been to cover for that. I don't think so. I think it is truthful this part of the evening. And she hasn't been hedging very much, and she's been giving straightforward, truthful baseline answers, I think. So let's carry on.
As far as the friends that you were driving around with, what are their names?
Avery, Panadosi, and Danielle Seaman.
Can you do us a favor and spell those last names for our court
yes.
reporter, please?
Piantedosi.
And the second name?
S. Danielle Seaman, Seaman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And those were friends of yours from school, from Kent High School as well?
Yes.
And had they been with you at the game previously?
Yes, I believe so.
So you, when you say drove around, whereabouts were you driving around?
Through Canton, pretty aimlessly, just driving.
And at some point you come upon a dog, is that correct?
Correct.
And where was that?
On Elm Street.
And this was a dog obviously unfamiliar to you, is that correct?
Yes.
So what did you do with the dog?
The dog ran over to the car when we stopped and picked the dog up, and we didn't really know what to do with it, so we brought it to the police station.
Do you recall at all what kind of dog it was?
No, white.
Small dog?
It was small. It was white and brown. Not sure what type.
And so while you're at the police station, what, if anything, did you learn about that dog?
So she seems like a well brought up young lady, doesn't she? But Jen McCabe, what have you done? To ask your daughter to cover for you. I don't think that's going to sit well in the decades to come. Do you think that Allie McCabe will be one of the ones that cooperates with the FBI? Do you think that her resentment of being dragged in and asked to lie on behalf of others will grow to the degree that she realizes that attempting to frame an innocent woman is the evil part of the evening's crimes? Again, all of this is my opinion. I believe the accident part of the crime, the fight, the drunkenness, the immaturity of fighting over rejection, romantic interest, and possibly other things that we don't know about yet, is one thing, but then deliberately trying to send an innocent to prison for the rest of their lives for a crime that they didn't do, that's another thing entirely. That's crossing a line into evil. And to drag your own daughter into your plot is something that I think you'll regret, Jen McCabe. Okay, let's carry on.
I went in the police station. The dog stayed in the car with one of my friends. And as I was walking in and telling the officer that I found a dog, he got a call from the owner, and she asked if she was like, "Oh, can you return my dog, please?"
And so you brought the dog back to the owner?
Yes.
Do you know about what time all of that was going on?
I'm not sure.
Now, you mentioned that you had picked up a person by the name of Colin Albert, is that right?
Correct.
And who was Colin Albert to you, or can you describe to the jury sort of your relationship with Colin?
I've known Colin since I've been born. Our families are very close. We went to high school together, growing up, in the same friend group. So yeah, we're very close.
So he was in the same grade as you, is that right?
Correct.
So he was a senior at this time as well?
Yes.
And you have friends, mutual friends together?
Yes.
Now, the two of you are not actually sort of blood related, is that correct?
Correct.
But you have sort of relatives in common, is that correct?
Yes.
And to that point, as far as when he reached out to you, let me ask you this. How is it that you came to come by and sort of pick him up on that evening?
He texted me and was asking for a ride, and then I responded, drove, and got him, texted him when I arrived.
Now, as far as...
So did you notice the cognitive stress within that answer? Drove and got him, texted him when I arrived. The language is breaking down under stress. In go the deceptive flags. And it's concerning because it's an increase in deception just at the point of explaining the reasons why for the Colin pickup. So let's listen more carefully now.
That sort of, I don't know what exactly to call it, but as far as you picking him up at certain places, like on weekend nights, was that out of the realm of normalcy, or was that something that happened on occasion?
No, that's common. He knew I was driving that night, so it's pretty common. Our friends, we always just drive each other around and stuff.
And without getting too much into it, as far as high school was concerned, particularly when someone was drinking, would they call and ask for a ride?
Correct, yes.
Rather than driving their own car?
Yes.
And as far as you knew, was Colin drinking at least at some point during that evening?
Yes.
Is that why he needed a ride?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to your parents,
is that why he needed a ride? And did you notice that the yes in terms of pitch and volume became more insistent? So sometimes in forensic linguistics, we can look at the tone and the pitch and the volume, and that in itself can give us intelligence. So perhaps it's telling us that what she's really saying is, yes, it's that reason and not this other reason which you mustn't look at over here. Yes, that's the reason, not this one. Did you catch the slight change in tonality, pitch and volume and emphasis when she was asked the reason why she went to pick up Colin? Okay, let's carry on.
Around this time that you're driving around and you're going to pick up Colin, did you have any idea where your parents were or what they were doing?
I knew they were going out after the basketball game, but no, I didn't know. I have their Life 360. They have mine, so I wasn't sure though.
And as far as the Life 360 goes, is that something that that you sort of keep?
So notice things like self-censorship or self-interruption. So she says things like, I didn't I can't remember exactly what it was, but essentially she interrupted herself, she self-censored, and then carried on. So watch out for increases in self-censorship as sensitivity increases. So notice we're now using multiple deception indicators and starting to combine them as we get more complex, or you get more skilled in statement analysis. We can now start to combine techniques so that it begins to flow more. Does that make sense? The combination of techniques, rather than just identifying the individual techniques that you've learnt and putting in the individual flags, you now want to start experiencing getting this at conversational speed and congratulating yourself and saying to yourself, yeah, I got that, and at conversational speed. So start to notice that, and then start to notice that not only are you seeing the individual deception flags, but you're seeing the combinations, and you're noticing that sometimes combinations have more deceptive power. Does that make sense? I hope so. Look out for combinations of deception flags, which overall increase the level of deception in the paragraph or sentence.
Track of them, or they keep track of you?
It's more them keeping track of me.
Now, do you know approximately what time it was that you first get sort of a Colin reaches out via text to pick him up?
I believe it was around midnight. I'm not exactly sure exact, but around midnight.
And did you know where he was when he asked you to pick him up?
Yes, the Albert's house, 34 Fairview.
And is that a house that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And what, if any, relationship do you have to the people that live at the Albert's house?
My aunt and uncle and my cousins.
So Brian Albert is your uncle.
So we do look at social introductions and the way introductions are described. So there we saw, for instance, the Albert's house rather than my aunt and uncle. We saw two parents, didn't we, earlier? So we take note of social introductions and the exact phraseologies that are used and what intelligence can be gleaned from that.
Correct?
Correct.
Paul Albert is your aunt.
Correct.
How is she your aunt? Your father's side, your mother's side?
My mother's sister.
And Colin Albert, obviously last name Albert, he's related to people at Fairview as well?
Correct.
That's sort of on the other side of the family?
Correct.
And do you know as far as your conversation with Colin, do you know why he was over at that house that night?
It was little Brian's birthday.
And so he had gone over for that purpose, and you went by to pick him up?
Yes.
And do you recall where you were or sort of who you were with when you first get that text or communication from Colin to pick him up?
Yes, I was at another friend's house. After I drove Avery and Danielle home, I went somewhere else.
You drove the two friends that you were with earlier home, and then you went somewhere else?
Yes, I believe, yes.
Is at that point did you get a text from Colin?
Yes.
Now, do you recall whether or not the information that you had as to where Colin was that night, is that something that came via text as well, or was that a phone call or some other type of communication?
I knew he was there. Could have been a phone call. I'm not sure.
So, were there a variety of different ways that you would have communicated with Colin around that time?
Yes, there's other apps as well. Yes.
I'm sorry, you said through apps as well?
Yes.
And what kind of apps were there?
For example, like Snapchat.
So you had each other's sort of Snapchat information, phone number information, call, text, snap, could have been any of those things?
Yes.
Now, when you get that communication from him to come pick him up, about how long a period of time was it from the time that you get the text from Colin to the time that you arrive in the area of Fairview?
I'm not sure.
And you're familiar with that home at 34 Fairview, right?
Correct.
Place you've been to countless times before, as you're related to the people that own it.
Correct.
And do you recall from where you were coming from, as far as how did you come to Fairview? Would that have been on the Chapman side or the Cedar Crest side, or how did you come?
I don't remember.
And when you get...
So notice that ever since it came to picking up Colin, the deception started, and timeline memory starts to disappear. How she got there disappears. When she got there disappears. When Colin came out of the house disappears. Everything starts to disappear. Notice, try and find anything that you can lay your hat on. Everything becomes vague. Everything becomes minimized.
The home, you obviously park at some point, correct?
Correct.
And where in relation to the house did you park?
I believe in the driveway on the left side. Not entirely sure, I just believe that.
And when?
Not entirely sure. I just believe that. Can you see how the language has suddenly become very deceptive? She can't even say that she's sure she got there. The most that she'll go to is that she believes that she might have.
When you arrive, what, if any, communication did you send to Colin?
I texted him saying here.
And after?
Okay, so notice also with deceivers and liars, when they have to lie, when they have to deliver the barefaced lie, they go so overboard with the minimization that it becomes obvious. They might even at the end of a statement say, "That's it," as an example. No more. Not discussing it anymore. That's it. Or they might use singular word answers, like she's just attempted. Pronouns get dropped. Tenses get dropped. Descriptors get dropped. The sentence itself becomes one word.
You texted that to Colin, he comes out of the house, is that? When you arrive, what, if any, communication did you send to Colin?
I texted him saying here.
And after you texted that to Colin, he comes out of the house, is that correct?
Correct.
And when he comes out of the house, about how long a period of time was it from the time that you texted him here to the time that he comes out to the car?
I'm not sure. A few minutes.
And in the area around the time that you arrived on Fairview Road, what, if anything, do you recall in regard to the weather, or what was it doing at that?
I believe it was starting to snow. Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. Isn't that interesting? Nothing crazy. And she believes it was starting to snow. So far we've got the inability to say anything has happened. Not a single thing that she is prepared to say without a hedge or a qualifier, and I believe, etc. Have you noticed? Nothing. Not a single thing. We can't get her to commit to anything. So that brings us onto a principle, which is if they cannot say it for themselves, we cannot say it for them. We will not reinterpret her own inability to tell us what she did and then remove all of her hedging, remove all of her qualifying, remove all of her I can't remembers, I believes, I don't knows, could have beens, might have beens, remove all of that for her. We don't do it. We do, however, begin the statement believing them until they themselves talk us out of it. So we begin the statement with belief. But she's talking us out of it, isn't she? Initially, when we were taking her baseline, she was more than capable of answering straightforward questions with straightforward answers. But suddenly, as we get into the deception areas, she's being deceptive and highly deceptive. Let's see if we can get a single thing committed to.
Accumulation, what, if anything, did you observe at that time?
Lights on in the house. That's it.
Oh dear. So the only thing that she's prepared to say or remember is, and look at lights. She doesn't say, I saw lights on in the house. Doesn't say that. The most that she's prepared to do is say, lights on in the house. That's it. You're getting nothing else out of me. That's it. Lights on in the house. That's all I'm prepared to say about the entire evening. I wonder if she was ever there. Because so far, her brain is unable to commit to anything that would place her at 34 Fairview.
As far as the snow was concerned, was it starting to sort of stick to the ground?
I don't remember.
So you text Colin shortly thereafter he comes out, is that right?
And what was that little look for? Because I've noticed that with a lot of these witnesses, they beg for help. When they're put under pressure, in other words, once the lies start to become exposed, they beg for help. More often than not, it's that judge, Canoni, who jumps in to rescue the witness in that biased way that she does. But very often it's also the prosecutor, and then the judge supports the ridiculous claim for an objection. Either way, they've got their little tag team going, and the witness knows to beg. They've essentially been promised, don't worry, we've got your backs. They entered trial one in particular very confident. The arrogance dripping off them. Not so much now that the world knows the truth.
Do
Correct.
you recall, you're familiar, obviously, as I've asked you a couple times now with the house. There were 2 doors in the front of the house, is that right?
Yes.
And do you know which of the 2 doors Colin came out of?
No, I'm not sure.
And when he came down, he came...
Okay, so she doesn't know what the weather was like, what time she got there, how long it took Colin, what she texted, anything she noticed about the property or the house, where she parked, what door Colin came out. Nothing. Not a single thing is she prepared to commit to, and we cannot commit for her. We would all probably love to think that she's not lying and that she wouldn't lie to protect the killers. But then we also know human nature, don't we? What else can she do? Her own mother has Googled Hoss Long to die in the snow. Her own mother is deep in the heart of the conspiracy. And this is the conspiracy that Brian Albert so very kindly laid out before the public in his interview after the after trial 2. Do you remember? He went on television and he laid out exactly who was needed in his conspiracy theory for Karen to be innocent, he said. And he named all of the people by title, by job title rather than name. Okay, let's carry on.
Over to the car, correct?
Yes.
And you're in the driveway?
Yes.
He gets into what part of the car? Front passenger seat?
Yes, I believe.
And
yes, I believe. She even had to be given the front passenger seat. But she still couldn't commit to it. She still had to put in the qualifier.
from the time that you, so when you leave from there, where is it that you went?
His house and then my house.
You dropped him off at his house and then you went home?
Correct.
Now, Ms. McCabe, if I could take you back just to a little bit from where we had left off. When you arrived at the residence at 34 Fairview Road, you pulled into the driveway, is that correct?
I believe so.
And obviously,
I mean, it's getting ridiculous. In fact, this is a good lesson in deception detection, in effect, because we've got minimization, hedging, and qualification going on constantly, but more importantly, only at the times when deception is needed. So when it's 100% safe, her memory recall is no doubt perfect, and she doesn't need all the hedging and all the qualifying. But as soon as it gets onto the dangerous areas, suddenly everything has to be I believe, could be, can't remember, etc. Can you see how, now that you know, it's black and white, it's binary, it's on or it's off? And this is the interesting thing about the binary memory pattern from the liars. It's consistent. And amongst these witnesses, it's consistent. They have the binary memory pattern of coaching, planning, and coordination. And strangely enough, thanks to Brian Albert conspiracy, because they all have perfect memory recall where it's safe and where the group has decided it's safe, and they all have almost complete amnesia where it isn't safe and where the group has decided it isn't safe. And that in itself becomes the case flag. The witnesses have almost become one in this planned deception, apart from the truthful witnesses such as Lucky and Barros, who is the Serpico of this case, in effect. One of the few honest policemen in the case, although there are others, and we'll cover those. Okay, let's carry on.
on that date, you were familiar with the types of vehicles that your parents drove?
Yes.
And did you see any of your parents' vehicles at the home when you pulled in and parked in the driveway?
No.
And when you got to the house at any point, did you exit the car or go inside the house?
No.
So you texted him that you were there, you stayed in the car, and he came out.
Yes.
And when Colin came out to the car, what, if any, observations did you make of him in regard to his sobriety, as far as what, if any, observations did you make in respect to that?
Normal.
Didn't seem overly intoxicated to you?
No.
Okay, so look at the answer. Normal. Very often we have unnecessary language, and that can be a deception indicator. But here we have an example of she's unable to lie off the cuff. And so one of the ways which strategically the liar can deal with that is complete, absolute minimization. You can't go to the level of mute, although they often do, strangely enough. They just say nothing. You've literally defeated them in their lies so much they just can't say anything. They become mute. Here we have an example. Allie McCabe has gone back to the one word or two word type answer. So asked to describe Colin, normal. That's all she's prepared to say. So she's prepared to say nothing at all about her visit to 34 Fairview without hedging, qualification, and minimization. And she's prepared to say nothing about Colin, who she claims she collected from 34 Fairview that evening at this time. I don't believe her. Something's going on because she's being unnecessarily deceptive. And I don't think it's just the timeline. I think it could be the location as well. So maybe she picked him up at another location. She's being highly deceptive. I wonder what it is.
And as far as his face or features, or from whatever you could see, what, if any, injuries did you observe on Colin when he came out?
None.
And how would you describe his demeanor when he came out and he got into the car?
Normal.
Now, during the course, you drove from the Fairview home to Colin's house, is that right?
Yes.
And where was Colin living at that point?
I don't know the address, but his new house, not the one where he was neighbors with John, the newer house.
And if you could, just generally speaking, where was that in relation to the town of Canton? What was it?
It's in the center of town, close to the library.
And do you recall, or do you know what type of residence that is?
Yes, it's like the condos. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, townhouses.
As far as your drive from the residence in Fairview to Colin's house, did you make any stops along the way?
No.
About how long a drive is it from Fairview to Colin's new house?
7 minutes, 5 minutes.
And when you arrived there, what did you observe Colin do?
Got out of the car, went inside, got the key, locked it, went inside.
And is that something?
Okay, so notice the cognitive overload, the sentence structure. It's not clear, is it?
Or did you wait for him to get inside?
Yes.
And why was it?
I always wait for him because it's like how he has to open the first door to get inside. So I usually just wait for everyone to get inside.
And during the...
I usually just wait for everyone to get inside. Usual. Normal factor. She's not being clear, is she? What do you think? Do you think she picked him up? And if so, at what time and from where?
Arrived from Fairview to Colin's house, do you recall anything specific about, did you have a conversation with him?
Probably. I don't remember what we were talking about.
Probably. I don't remember what we were talking about.
And then following...
I mean, it's not... She's getting confused. She knows that she's not supposed to know about the murder at this moment in time, but she will know about the murder in the morning. And you would remember what happened that night when you picked up Colin, wouldn't you? But because she's getting confused as to... She knows that she's not supposed to know about the murder yet. So then she's telling us that she can't remember anything about what they spoke about the night before the murder. Does that make any sense? In other words, she's overcompensating in order to convince us that it was just a normal night and I was just dropping him home. And so, of course, I wouldn't remember what we were talking about because it was just a normal night. But the next morning, when you find out that John's dead, you would remember because it would be relevant, it would be important, and it was only last night and you weren't drinking. Do you see? So that becomes its own deceptive marker where they're overcompensating for what they shouldn't know about, but which is abnormal the next day not to know about. I hope that makes sense.
Where did you go?
I believe home.
Where did you go? I believe home. You see, a truthful person doesn't need all of this rubbish. So where did you go after dropping Colin off? I believe home. I only believe it because I could have gone somewhere else. It's ridiculous.
And when you got home, were either of your parents home at that point?
No.
Do you know about what time it was that you got?
Not exactly. I would estimate a little bit before 12:30, around that time.
They've all been very well coached to stay away from timelines.
And at any point in time over the rest of the course of that evening, did you see your parents? Did you talk to your parents or anything like that?
I know I talked to my dad on the phone when we found the dog. Other than that, no.
And so after your return home, when you went to bed or you went to sleep, were your parents home at that point?
No.
About how much time was it between the time when you got home, around 12:30 or so, and when you went to sleep?
Because Jen had a busy night in store for herself, didn't she? Acting as the mother hen and the coordinator of Brian Albert's conspiracy theory. She was a very busy little bee that night.
Not long. I don't know.
Now, turning your attention to the following day, at some point you woke up, correct?
Yes.
And were your parents home at that point?
Yes.
And were both of your parents home at that point?
Yes.
Do you know about what time it was that you woke up the next morning?
No, I do not.
Of course you don't, because no one's allowed to talk about timelines. I'm surprised that Lally hasn't learnt this by now.
Now, Ms. McCabe, at some point in August of 2023, did you have occasion to meet with some troopers from the state police?
Yes, I believe. I'm not sure what time, but on a Zoom.
And was that one trooper or more than one trooper or something?
So it was important for her to tell us that she isn't sure about what time the Zoom meeting was. And that's because every single witness in this case is not sure about any time, about anything, at any time. Isn't that strange? It's the only case in the history of the world where every single witness knows nothing about time.
I believe two. I'm not sure.
Do you recall any of the names of any of those troopers?
Yuri maybe was one of them. I'm not sure.
And now, ma'am, following that meeting that you had with troopers from the state police, what, if anything, did you provide to them from your phone?
Text messages with Colin, maybe pictures. I don't know. Definitely the text messages.
And before we get to that, just as far as your phone, what kind of phone did you have at that time?
I believe an iPhone 14 Pro Max, maybe.
And I should have been more specific as far as the time, but the iPhone you're talking about as far as the Pro Max, was that in January of 2022
I'm sorry.
or in August of 2022?
That was in August.
And between January of 2022 and August of 2023, did you have the same phone throughout that time period?
I'm not sure. I believe I upgraded. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I believe. I'm sorry. It's constant.
And when you upgraded your phone, what, if any, data sort of carried over from the old phone to the new phone?
Everything.
So as far as chats or text messages or phone contacts, things like that, all of that transferred from one phone to the new phone?
Correct.
Yes, because they've got a problem with getting new phones, this crew, haven't they? If they don't destroy their old phones, then they tend to change communication apps. And notice how, think about it. You're at a party, the next morning, a dead cop is found on the front lawn. The innocent would be texting each other and calling each other, saying, "Have you heard? John's been found dead on the lawn." "No, what happened? My God, when? How? Who? Where? Why? My God, what's everyone else doing?" And the communication would have been constant from the innocent. What do we get? We get communication shutdown and evidence destruction. And more importantly, we get evidence destruction following a tip-off internally. When Higgins and Albert both destroyed their phones after the internal tip. Either that or it's mathematically the biggest coincidence in a murder trial that's ever happened. That both witnesses destroy the evidence a day or two before the state wanted their phones. Someone tipped them off and said they're coming for your phones. And that's why they both eventually got rid of them. But anyway, all of the witnesses have problems with their phones. They either lose them, destroy them, change them, or change communication apps. And that wouldn't happen normally.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And so first, ma'am, I'm going to show you a two-page document to ask you to take a look at it and look up.
Okay.
And do you recognize that, ma'am?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
This is from my phone, my text messages.
And the second page, what is that?
Colin's contact information.
Are those screenshots that you took from your phone and provided to the troopers in August of 2023?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Commonwealth to seek to introduce the event as
Objection, that has to be heard.
Okay, come on up and bring that. All right, the lawyers are going to get to ask you a few questions now before we go any further in front of the jury.
Okay.
Okay? So, Mr. Lally, you can take the exhibits back and you can question this witness, and then Ms. Giannetti can cross-examine.
May I approach with
Yes.
Alderman? So, Ms. McCabe, with reference to the two screenshots that we were just talking about before the jury left the room, those are screenshots that you took from your own phone, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the communications contained therein, is it your memory that those are communications that you had with Colin Albert?
Why don't you ask her what they are, non-leading?
Those screenshots, as far as the communications, what are they? When were they done?
At a later date. Is that what you're asking? Sorry.
So I'm asking, as far as the actual content of the conversations, when did those conversations occur?
January 28th.
And you were a participant in those conversations?
Yes.
And as far as the content of those conversations, is it your memory that the content reflected there is accurate as to what the content of the conversations were between yourself and Colin Albert the evening of the 28th into the 29th?
Yes.
And Colin Albert was somebody that you were familiar with, correct?
Yes.
And beyond what's contained within these screenshots, you had other text communications with Colin Albert using the same contact information?
Correct.
And how is it that you knew or were aware that the person or the contact that you were talking to was Colin Albert?
Because it's his phone?
With reference to that contact you had in your phone for Colin Albert.
Even she thinks Lally's an idiot.
Yes.
When you called the number, who answered?
Colin?
And when you had texted Colin on prior occasions using that contact information, did you have any, you have a text communication, did you have any subsequent conversation in relation to the content of those text communications?
Sorry, can you rephrase that?
And I'm not just asking specifically about these. What I'm saying is you had contact information in your phone for Colin Albert.
Yes.
And on any of those prior occasions when you had texted that contact information, you put in as Colin Albert into your phone.
Yes.
And just to be clear, you were the one who input that number as Colin Albert in your phone.
Yes.
And so on this or any prior occasions when you had contacted via text that contact of Colin Albert in your phone, following those text communications, did you have any conversation with Colin Albert related to the content of those communications?
Sorry, I'm confused.
Do you understand the question? You have to make these.
Don't worry, it's not your fault. It's just that Lally is an absolute idiot and he doesn't know how to speak English. But let's have another go.
Simpler. Let's try and get through this voir dire, Mr. Lally.
At some point during the course of your, how long had you had Colin's contact information in your phone?
For a while, years.
And over the course of those years, had you had conversations related to content in text in person?
Oh, yes.
And as far as the content that you had texted to that number you associated or input as Colin Albert, was Colin Albert aware of the content of those text communications?
Oh, correct. Yeah.
And within those specific screenshot of the text communications from that evening, as far as your recollection of that particular evening, are the times that are associated with those accurate as far as you remember?
Yes.
And did you do anything to alter the times that are associated with those text communications prior to taking a screenshot and giving it to the state police?
No.
Now turning to the other two screenshots that you took, those are photographs, correct?
Did I take them?
I'm just asking what they are.
Oh, both pictures of Colin. One's with my aunt. The other's just him and some other people blocked off.
And do you know when and where those were taken?
Yes, they were taken at the Albert's house. One of their sons were coming home from the Marines, so it was like a welcome home party.
And when was that in relation to the evening of January 28th to 29th?
A few weeks after.
And that sort of coming home celebration for your cousin who was coming home from the Marines, were you there for that?
Yes.
And so as far as your observation of those photographs, is what's depicted of Colin Albert, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what he looked like on February 11th?
Sure. Yes.
I have nothing further.
All right, Ms. Gianetti?
Thank you, Ron.
Mr. Yannetti, our favourite.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How long have you had an iPhone? I'm not talking about your current iPhone, but just iPhones in general.
For years.
More than 5 years?
Yes.
And how old are you now?
I'm 20.
20. And when did you get your first iPhone, if you remember?
I don't remember.
12, 13?
Yeah, around middle schoolish.
Maybe 7 or 8 years. Is that a decent estimate?
Yes.
And in those 7 or 8 years, you have learned how to operate an iPhone, the various features that they have, and the apps that you can download and use, correct?
Correct.
And your current iPhone has a number of apps on it, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the text message app, you'll agree with me that that is a green icon with a white sort of speech bubble in the middle of it?
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of today's Veroscope. We are about a third of the way through, perhaps a little bit more, and we'll continue with this tomorrow, where we'll be going into far more detail on the actual forensic linguistics itself. So do put in the comments any of the deceptive flags which you've seen so far, and I look forward to speak with you in the comments, and more importantly, I look forward to this wonderful year ahead of us. And thank you so much to all of you who have really helped the Veroscope channel. The channel itself is about 5 months old, and already we've got thousands of subscribers. So thank you to every single one of you. I think we're almost at 14,300, something like that. And the quality of the comments in terms of analysis skills has grown significantly. And the membership area, we've now got nearly 100 members inside the YouTube membership area. And so a good quality team is being formed, isn't it? And I can tell that from the quality of the analysis. So looking forward to that improving this year. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And I look forward to, and do feel free to share the Veroscope content on other social media, whether that's clips or whether you want to talk over it. Do feel free to fair use the content as well. Okay, enjoy the rest of the year.